This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. The devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain. Yeah.
Pull up, turn the volume, let the bass ignite. Devil's advocates, that's the channel. Together we fight. They ain't here to echo what the masses preach. They challenge beliefs, putting truth within reach. Flip the script, reverse the lens, ain't no fear to provoke. Unpopular opinions, watch the stagnant water smoke. They dissect the narrative, poke holes in the facade. Sharpening the mind, ain't no truth, no disregard.
This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. Devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain.
See, the description hit hard, that's the blueprint to code. Not everyone likes it, but that's the path they strode. Challenging beliefs, that's the mission to aim. Flipping tables on conventional, fanning intellectual flame. Stepping opposing view, not for conflicts embrace, but to sharpen the blade of truth. Leave no logical trace of error or bias or thoughts that just float. They dig to the core, let the arguments bloat with substance and reason, not just empty retort. They building up thinkers, a mental fortress of thought.
This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. Let devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain.
You don't go by always being right, that's a stagnant pool. Growth comes from questioning, breaking every rigid rule. Honest conversations, bold questions, a few uncomfortable facts. They lay it all bare, no turning back, no looking back. Seeking clarity or good debate, either way you win. They push you to understand where your own thoughts begin. So hit that subscribe button, let the knowledge unfurl. The devil's advocates,
Changing your whole world.
yeah, it might make you squirm, but that's how you transcend. Listen to the devil's advocates till the very end.
Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to know why I'm here today? It's not because I want to give you a pep talk or because I want to make you feel good about yourselves. No, I'm here to tell you the truth.
All right. Hello and good evening. It is Luigi Manjone night, if you didn't see that from the thumbnail. So if you're here and you're expecting to hear Idaho 4, as I often talk about, and I just did an Idaho drop this morning, more of those Idaho State Police document reviews, that's not going to happen tonight. So I hope you stick around for Luigi Manjone. It's a case that is near and dear to my heart. And by the way, I'm going to have to eat shit tonight because some things that I've been saying for quite a while, emphatically telling you I may be wrong about it. I may be. And so I'm going to eat shit anyways, even though I might still be true, but I think I was mostly not true. I'll explain that in a little bit. So let's just, first of all, say a few things. Penny, thank you for coming in. You were the firsties tonight. Thanks for dropping in. Robin, thank you as moderator as well. She's backstage. I haven't given her a mic yet, so she's just going to have to shut the hell up and be patient. I will get her on the mic here shortly. She's probably laughing right now, but you're not going to hear it because, again, I have her muted and she will wait her damn turn. Anyways, we'll get her up here in a minute. She helps me with the audio moderation so that when I miss things, she can help bring it to my attention. I have a lot to talk about tonight. However, the whole reason why you come to lives is to get a little bit more interaction. So I don't want to necessarily talk nonstop, although I really honestly could tonight talk nonstop. We have some legal issues to talk about. I need to eat some shit and explain to you why I said certain things that I did early on in Luigi Manjone's case, and how things may be changing in Luigi Manjone's case. And it's good news and it's bad news for all of us that are invested in this case, regardless of which side you're on. It's good or bad news, depending on your perspective. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Kimberly Maud in the house, thank you for coming in. Wonders Deep, thanks for coming in as well. Just looking to see if anybody's Essie, as always, regular here. Thank you for coming in. Luigi Revolution, of course, on Luigi night, Luigi Revolution would have to show up, of course. Thank you for coming in tonight as well. Diana Aquendo, hey. Did I get Diana or yeah, I think that's right. Right. Yep, Diana Quendo, Oquendo. See, I'm not sure. You'll have to fucking bust my balls and tell me. Of course, you're gonna have to spell it phonetically because you're not gonna get the mic yet. So that'll be another day. Anyways, who else do we got? Looking through the list, Michelle, greetings as Michelle, good for coming here. We already got Kimberly and one, of course, as usual. Thank you for being here. Ahmad is, so we got about half our people in here. Well, not half. There's a lot of people who haven't said anything in chat. There's more people here than are typing in chat. Indiana girl, Angela K, thanks for checking in. I love it when you guys tell me where you're coming in from. It's really cool. I love that. Cheryl Fitzgerald, often here, and thanks again for coming tonight. Hope that you're all excited to hear some Luigi Manjone news. All right, I'm going to go ahead and give Robin a mic now. So let's see if we can do that. Are you there? Can you hear me, Robin, or are you not on stage yet?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can. I wonder why my chair feels like it's hot. Like, am I about to combust on fire? I think maybe I could be in big trouble.
Are you too close to the lights?
Yeah. Crystal White, welcome in as well. Thank you so much. And from Georgia, nice. I love seeing where people are coming in from. Drum roll for Robin. Nice. Anyways, let's get into some of the things that are going on. Tonight, we're going to take a look at a new letter filed by Karen Agnifilo, the attorney for Luigi Manjone in the state of New York, and the federal government, the Southern District of New York versus Luigi Manjone. Because again, if you are not aware, Luigi Manjone is facing charges in 3 different jurisdictions simultaneously. Pennsylvania, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We don't have a lot to talk about Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but we will talk about the state of New York versus Luigi Manjone, and Karen Agnifilo is his attorney in that one. She filed a letter today. We're going to take a look at it, and then I'm going to eat some shit. I'm going to eat some shit because there's some good news and some bad news with Karen's latest filing. And so we're going to explain what it all means. It's going to get a little philosophical. It's going to get a little legal. I'm going to explain to you some legal terms and how things work as I understand it in the state of New York, and why Karen Agnifilo may be exercising certain options in the state of New York, which might be a little unique to New York. So we will get into that. I'm trying to decide whether to give you the letter first or something else first, but I think we're going to go with the letter first. So, and then I'll eat some shit. All right. So here's the letter that is posted on LuigiManjoneInfo.com. Well, you know what? You're not seeing it because I'm not sharing it to the screen. How about I share that to the screen? Let me go here and let me go here, and there you go. Now you can see what I'm talking about. This is a copy of the letter from Agnifilo Intrader. That's the letterhead for Luigi Manjone's attorney, Karen Agnifilo, filed August 25th. What are we on now? Are we on the 26th? We're on the 26th, filed yesterday. And the Supreme Court criminal term, it says New York County. It was to the Honorable Judge Caro. He is the judge presiding over the state case. And essentially, now I've got the whole letter as usual highlighted because everything sounded really important to me. I'm probably not going to read the entire letter for you, but let me get the highlights. Essentially what it is, and let's start with the first paragraph because that's going to lead us to a lot of stuff. As the court is aware, the defense has been directed to provide notice of the defense's intention of offering evidence pursuant to criminal procedure law, section 250.10, and no later than August 25th. There's a stamp over there. It made it hard to read. No later than August 25th, 2025. We write to request additional time to determine whether we will be serving such a notice for reasons that we would be willing to provide to the court ex parte. Let me break down what this means. This is the shocker to me. This is the shocker. I told you early on no, Luigi Manjone is not going for an insanity defense or any kind of mental illness kind of defense, because that should have been done within the first 30 days. And that part I can kind of stick to. Generally speaking, it is mentioned in the first 30 days. In fact, if you don't mention it in the first 30 days and you do things like requesting that your client be given a laptop to help in his own defense, it is almost as if saying your client is mentally well enough to help in their own defense. That means they don't have any mental issues. If he had mental issues, then he wouldn't be capable of providing his helping in his own defense. The kind of things go, and that was my logic for a long time. I said, look, it's not going to be a mental defense or an insanity plea type of thing, because they should have done that early. I was wrong. I was wrong about something. It doesn't have to be done early. This is where, so I want to clarify, it is generally done. I verified this. It is generally done in the first 30 days. However, in this case, the court has not set an official trial date. And so normally within the first 30 days of being arraigned, you have to decide whether or not you're going to go for some kind of insanity or plea like that. And Karen didn't do that. And I even said it'll cheapen the message if Luigi Manjone, and again, if Luigi Manjone did what they say that he did, then going for an insanity plea is like saying no sane person would have ever done something like this, so he must have been insane, and it ruins the message if he did it. Now, I was always under the assumption that there's a very strong possibility that Karen and Nifilo will say he didn't do it, prove my guy did it. If they go for any kind of insanity type defense, it's as if saying, yeah, our guy did it, but here's why he did it, which is a whole different narrative. So what is Karen saying in this particular paragraph? What she's saying is, we have been given till August 25th, which was yesterday when this letter was filed, to provide an official response to the court, whether or not we're going to use any kind of insanity or mental issue defense in this case. And that date is approaching. And so now we ask for an extension because we need a little bit more time. That was a shocker to me, and one that I have to backpedal now on, say, well, I guess the insanity of defense is on the table. And that's a complete stunner to me, because I didn't think how the two go hand in hand. I've since educated myself, and I'm going to educate you tonight on how things are different in the state of New York and why that happened. Now, I'm going to take a moment, by the way. Do we have anything, Robin, I need to address? This is a good breaking time just to make sure.
Well, I know Luigi Revolution said that they think that Karen is just buying time to see what Pennsylvania does. Do you think that that could be true?
It could be true. This is why I said I kind of need to eat shit, because I'm not 100% sure it means that she's going for an insanity defense. It just means I didn't even think it was an option, and apparently is still an option. So that's where I was wrong. But yes, it could. And again, she's not saying in this opening paragraph that we are going for that. She's literally saying we want a little bit more time to decide if that's going to be our defense. Right. And in a way, it's almost tipping your hand saying, well, yeah, our guy must have done it. So therefore, we might be looking into, and here's why he did it defense, which is a little disturbing. And the ex parte part, I believe, means that Karen Agnifilo is offering to submit to the court, essentially in private or whatever, to say, here's the reasons why we need some more time. If you want to see the evidence on why we need more time, we'd be glad to provide that to you ex parte, one-on-one, in a one-on-one circumstances. In other words, not going to show necessarily the prosecution, but we will show you, judge, why we need a little bit more time. Now, I've broken down a little bit of, this is where we're going to have an education in law tonight a little bit. So, and that is, if they go, so New York State has a particular type of defense for a mental health issue, and that is known as EED. That's not erectile dysfunction, by the way. EED is extreme emotional disturbance. I can't help myself, Robin. It's what I do. Anyways, extreme emotional disturbance, EED. It's kind of a New York thing. It's like if a man catches his wife in bed with another man and kills that man and his wife or whatever in a momentary rage, it is different than flat out murder. They often will then bring that murder charge down to manslaughter. You lost your mind for a moment, right? You lost your mind for a moment. So you can be rational right up to walking home. You could even be rational thinking, is that SOB banging my wife again? And so you know that's a possibility. Walk in there, see it, rage out, kill somebody, and go, well, I lost my mind temporarily, right? And so that is kind of it's a thing, particularly in New York, where it's been kind of like a big deal. The EED, the extreme emotional disturbance. Now, in order to prove that, it's like Luigi's saying, it's also known as a crime of passion. So again, here's the big thing that it does. If Luigi Manjone is going to admit that he did it, if successfully defended, it takes murder off the table and brings it down to manslaughter. So what you have to do is you have to be able to convince it. And here's the beauty of New York. From what I understand, New York's a little different than other places. Here's the beauty of New York. All they have to do, and this is going to be a little nuanced, all they have to do is they have to convince a jury that from Luigi Manjone's perspective, he lost his mind. It doesn't even have to be that a reasonable person would have lost their mind in that circumstance. It doesn't have to be that. The jury doesn't have to decide a reasonable person would have probably lost their shit, so therefore it's okay. They are literally, I'll get right back to you, Robert, if you had something to interject. They literally can look at Luigi Manjone's circumstance and say, if I were Luigi Manjone, I can see why he would make that decision. Did you have something there, Robin?
Oh, Chappie's at it again. Chappie's in the house.
Chappie, welcome. Good night or good evening or whatever you want to say. And thanks for dropping some love and support to the channel. So again, keep in mind this does not mean Karen Agnifilo is conceding Luigi Manjone shot Brian Thompson. What it's saying is we need a little bit more time to look through the discovery. That's what specifically, if you look at the next paragraph, because the people have yet to complete, I'm going to go back to this letter, because the people have yet to complete their full production of discovery, and because no trial or indeed any pretrial hearing has been scheduled, there's no prejudice to the people to delay the request. In other words, normally it would be done within 30 days, but because we don't even have a trial date set, there's no reason to rush this decision. We're still going through discovery. Now, what are they looking for in discovery, from what I understand? If they're going to go for an EED defense, extreme emotional disturbance, they need to be able to document that some kind of history that shows that Luigi Manjone was kind of spiraling into a bad mental state. It would be maybe emails that he sent to other people or actions that he was doing that can be documented. If they can show a decline in Luigi Manjone's thought processes that showed him becoming more and more agitated, for example, at his situation, to the point that momentarily he lost his shit and did something crazy, they can potentially use the EED. But they can't use the extreme emotional defense or disturbance defense without some kind of documentation showing it. They can't just say, oh yeah, he lost his mind for a moment with no support. They have to have support. So part of what she's saying is, look, we haven't even looked through all of the evidence, all of the discovery. It could still leave on the table. Maybe our guy didn't even do it if we look at the discovery and what you guys have on him and you don't have a good case. Or, okay, it looks like he did it, but we need to see if there's a history of showing him going down a downward spiral that explains why he did it. It leaves options on the table. And essentially that's all Karen Agnifilo is saying is keep our options open on how we want to defend this case. Keep in mind, Karen Agnifilo has also been trying to persuade the state and the federal government to let only one case go forward, because Luigi Manjone having to defend himself in one case could prejudice him in the other case. Let's give this a perfect example. The state wants to prosecute him first. The federal government's the one that can put Luigi Manjone to death. So the state wants to go first. So if Karen Agnifilo comes up with a EED defense in the state and says, yeah, my guy did it, but here's why he did it, then he's admitting guilt. And now the federal government can say, well, your guy admitted guilt, so we're executing him because he admitted he did it. And so it could prejudice his trial in the federal case by admitting guilt in the state case. So here's the good news and the bad news as we break down some more of this monumental shift, right? The good news for people who Right. The bad news for people who want to believe Luigi Manjone absolutely did not do the shooting and he's being set up and framed is that the defense is suggesting maybe our guy did it, and you have to understand why he did it. That's the scary thing for you. The bad news for you, if you believe Luigi Manjone absolutely did not do this, he couldn't have hurt a fly, he's being set up and framed, his lawyer is saying, hey, give us a moment to see if our guy did it, and here's why he did it. So it's a softening from there's no way in hell he did it, prove he did it kind of thing, right? It's entertaining the idea, at least, that maybe Luigi Manjone did it, but maybe you don't have the full story, and maybe you have to understand his emotional state at the time that he did it. The good news for those of you who believe that Luigi Manjone is a good guy, even if he did the horrible thing he did, there are many of you who have a massive amount of emotional distress over the idea that the federal government is hell-bent on executing Luigi Manjone and putting him to death. And a lot of you would rather see Luigi Manjone spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole than to be executed. Some of you are holding out hope that even if he did it, he'll get jury nullification or he'll get hung jury and he'll walk even if he did do it. And that's a whole controversial mess in itself. But the positive thing for those of you who do not want to see Luigi Manjone executed is, or spend the rest of his life in jail, is if they successfully do go for an EED defense, extreme emotional disturbance, if they successfully file that as his defense and win it, the maximum sentence is 25 years. Now, that's a long time of someone's life, but Luigi Manjone would be out shit by the time he's 50, right? Roughly. And so he would still have some bit of life left. And that's just maximum. There's not to say that he won't get a lesser sentence. But that's that. Did you have something there, Robin?
Yeah. Free Luigi has a question about a certain time period where EED can be used. Is there a certain amount of time that's only good for, like?
Is there a certain amount of time where EED could be used? Like if he went missing in July and allegedly committed the crime in December, could it still be used? Yes, it from what I understand, Free Luigi, is it still can be used. So again, what they would be looking for, in my understanding, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm just reading the law myself and trying to understand it, is that if they can show a downward spiral of his behavior, and that could have started in June when he went off the grid. So if Luigi Manjone went off the grid in June, July timeframe and spent months going down a downward spiral, talking to people, getting more and more worked up, walking around the streets of New York, not sure what he's going to do because he's just in a fog, and then sees an opportunity and does something crazy and momentarily loses his mind. All of that is considered, I think, part of that defense. In fact, what they need to show for a successful EED defense is that he was on a downward trajectory, that he was on a downward spiral of some kind, that it didn't just come out of nowhere, but that the momentary loss of his mind, crime of passion, was something that, wasn't planned and premeditated. It was more like I was mentally going down the wrong path, and then something happened and I snapped and I did something out of the ordinary. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer, but to be fair, it gets a little difficult, I think, challenging, if you had to go out and print a 3D printed gun and you had to travel across state lines and you show up at an investor conference after writing in your notebook that the investor conference provides a good opportunity to do something. That starts to negate the whole you temporarily lost your mind because you're planning those things out. But if they can show that his mind was going down a downward spiral, and if they can convince a jury to say, put yourself in Luigi Manjone's mind, and let me show you what Luigi was thinking and how he got to that place. If you can understand how Luigi might have gotten to that point, then you can maybe give him manslaughter instead of murder. So it's a big, big step, and it's a big confusing area. Because now, again, we don't know if Karen Agnifilo is going to do this or not. It could be, as was stated earlier, simply a stall tactic. It could be, but I think more than likely what it is Karen is leaving all of her options on the table. And I didn't think at this point that really the insanity defense was on the table. But again, the reason why it is because some of the unique kind of characteristics of the EED, or the extreme emotional disturbance defense in New York. It's also known as the heat of passion defense. It's popular in New York, apparently. Now, if Manjone experienced, I took some notes on this, if Manjone experienced a temporary but overwhelming mental break due to stress, fear, provocation, etc., the defense could argue that he wasn't thinking rationally, even if not legally insane. In other words, they don't have to prove he was insane or that he went into insanity, but they could just have to prove that he wasn't thinking clearly. EED does not excuse the crime, but mitigates it. It takes it again from murder to manslaughter, which is enormous when you're facing potentially being executed or spending the rest of your life in jail. A max sentence of 25 years is a hell of a lot different than 99 plus years in prison or life in prison or whatever you want to call it, right? There's a possibility for them to explain. So EED is one potential option they have for the defense of a mental issue. Diminished capacity is another one. Temporary psychotic break is another one. Let's talk briefly about those. I don't think that's what they're even looking at, but diminished capacity is that if Luigi Manjone was suffering from depression, PTSD, anxiety, or some other diagnosed issue, then that could impair his judgment. Now, I don't believe we've seen any indication that Luigi Manjone was on antidepressants or that he was seeing a therapist for depression. Those would be the kind of things that they would have to prove if they're going for a diminished capacity. If Luigi Manjone was seeing a psychiatrist, which we don't know, that would be HIPAA violation shit. And we already know that the district attorney believes in violating HIPAA violation law, so maybe they already know that shit or not. I'm being sarcastic. If you've been following the station enough, you know that the district attorney has flat out violated Luigi Manjone's HIPAA violations to look into his attorney or his doctor-client records to see what he was taking and what he was being treated for. If Luigi Manjone has a history of taking medications for anxiety, depression, and or PTSD, having therapy, that could fall under the diminished capacity. I don't think that's the case in Luigi's state. Now, remember, I told you I didn't think that any sort of the insanity defense was possible in Luigi's case, and apparently I was wrong because, again, Karen's asking for a little extra time to see that. The last one that I think would fall under the possibility of a diminished, a mental defense would be temporary psychotic break. A psychiatrist might testify, I got some notes, that the shooting wasn't premeditated, but the result of a brief psychotic break, meaning Manjone didn't fully understand the consequences of his actions. Now, by the way, in a typical insanity defense, and I hope this isn't boring the piss out of everybody, but because I find breaking down the law and understanding it to be fascinating, but some people find it horribly boring. But the point being is that in typical insanity defense, you have to prove that the person has no longer understood the difference between right and wrong. So they didn't realize that their actions were wrong. In a temporary psychotic break, you don't have those kind of things. In a diminished capacity, you don't have those kind of things. In an EED, you don't have those kind of things. You don't have to prove that they didn't know right and wrong. It's okay for them to know right and wrong. It's just that they made a momentary bad decision. And so those are possibilities. Now, I had asked the question, how do you both simultaneously say, hey, my client is of sound mind enough to assist in his own defense, so give him a laptop so he can help go through discovery, and say that he has diminished capacity? Well, the attorney could argue, Karen Agnifilo could argue, that to prepare a possible mental health defense, Manjone needs to review his own communications, his emails to friends, his communications potentially with journalists. Anything Luigi Manjone has done in the past 6 months leading up to the shooting would be grounds for establishing his mental health going down the shitter. So again, Luigi Manjone could help in his own defense, even if he's going for a mental situation, because he would help provide them those personal emails. Hey, did you talk to anybody back then about your mental health decline? Were you seeing anybody about PTSD? Did you happen to see a therapist? And he could be helping with that. So that is a reason why he could help. And the laptop would give him ability to help comb through his own emails, his own history, trying to say, oh yeah, here you can see where I was like, I clearly was not thinking clearly, and they could help establish that. So at the end of the day, before we get into some news articles I want to cover, we're about halfway through the show, and that's where I want to be right now. I want to say, I want to eat a little shit. I want to be 100% honest with you. I honestly believed that Luigi Manjone was not going to go for an insanity defense of any kind of mental defense. I told you why, because it normally is done within 30 days, and that is true. However, in this case, because no court date has been set and there's nothing on the docket at all for it, there was more time allotted than the typical 30 days. And now that's running out, and the judge is saying, because remember, they have an appearance in court on September 16th in the state case against Luigi. So that's why I think the deadline of August 25th was set, to make sure that these issues were all resolved before they went to court on September 16th. That is not the start of a trial. It's just more procedural stuff. But that's why she was given the deadline of August 25th. And now Karen is saying, hey, look, the deadline's a promise. we're not sure yet whether we're going to go for that kind of defense. Again, she didn't say EED. I'm telling you, out of all the reasons why they listed, why they could use that, again, looking at the letter on law, this is what we're looking at. The Criminal Procedure Law, section 250.10. That's the one we're talking about. That includes options like the extreme emotional disturbance, temporary insanity, psychotic break, those kind of things. All of that falls under that wheelhouse. And so they're asking basically for a little bit more time to decide if they're going that way. It doesn't mean they're going that way. It means decide if they're going that way. Looks like I have another question. What's this? This is one of my favorite questions. His family friend stated that he was using mushrooms and he thought that the mushrooms were affecting Luigi's mentality. Could that qualify him for diminished mental capacity or mental break? So it's a super, super personal issue to me. I know a crap ton about magic mushrooms. Psilocybin being the active ingredient. I got to be careful about saying things too many times because YouTube will flag this as, why is he talking about those kind of things? So to be fair, that particular substance is in stage 3 clinical trials in the United States, is about to be taken off the scheduled list of dangerous drugs because it's not dangerous and it's proving to be beneficial for people, and it helps with PTSD, it helps with anxiety, it helps with a million things, and is not dangerous like they told us it was for many, many years. And while it's still Schedule 1 right now, it is on the fast track in America to be used therapeutically. Microdosing, as Luigi Manjone had indicated doing with some of the mushrooms, microdosing does not, and I will say this a million times, does not create a psychotic break. Nobody has a psychotic break from microdosing magic mushrooms. In fact, and I won't go too far on it, but so the short answer is this. I have always taken it a little personally because of how much I know about psilocybin and how much I've researched. I've got books, multiple books on my shelf from doctors, Dr. Strassman, the DMT, the God mod, the spirit molecule. I've got Paulin's book, How to Change Your Mind Using Psychedelics. I've got an autographed copy of that book. I know a fuck ton about this particular topic. And what I'm telling you is you don't have psychotic breaks on that. And no, I do not believe Luigi Manjone microdosing mushrooms or even experimenting with little mushrooms could have caused a psychotic break. And so I don't think that's, for me, not even remotely possible. But I hear it a lot, and I get my hackles bent because people don't understand. Because again, that substance has been demonized in America since the don't do drugs era, and never should have been on. It never should have been on Schedule 1 in the first place, and we're fast tracking it in America to get it off Schedule 1. So done with my rant on that. But thank you for asking the question, because it is something I hear a lot. Any other questions, by the way, before we move on from that?
Nope.
Okay. Let's go to some news. Now, again, before I move into news, I got some news articles that I wanted to share, some thoughts about how Luigi's being portrayed in the news. So I'm switching gears now. I feel like I'm kind of done with the legal posturing, the defense. So I want to make sure you guys don't have any last minute questions. Are there any last minute questions about the insanity defense, the mental health defense, the diminished capacity defense, the extreme emotional disturbance defense? Is there any questions about that before I move on to a completely different subject related to Luigi Manjone, which is things in the news being said about him? So I just want to give another opportunity for last minute legal questions regarding the posturing from again, Karen Ignifilo is just asking for a little bit more time to decide whether or not they're going to try something, for example, like the EED defense, which would essentially be saying, our guy did it, but here's why he did it. And by the way, so I don't see any questions coming out, so I'll add one more thing. One of the things I said with this case was, is this case possibly going to be attempting to put the American healthcare system on trial? Again, no judge is going to want the American healthcare system to be put on trial. In fact, at the moment that they start saying, well, if it wasn't for our predatory healthcare system, this wouldn't have happened, the prosecution will say, objection, Your Honor, the healthcare system is not on trial here. Luigi Manjone is on trial for shooting Brian Thompson. End of story. And the judge will sustain that. I think he will. You're right. The healthcare system's not on trial here. Is there a way for you to say you need to understand how our guy got to the mental state of deciding that this was going to help without addressing the elephant in the room? How can you explain to a jury why Luigi Manjone did what he did if they're going to admit that? Again, let's keep in mind, this doesn't mean Karen is going for that defense. But if they are going for the, yeah, he did it, but he was under extreme emotional disturbance, they have to be able to present to a jury how Luigi Manjone got to that point. And guess what that does, in my opinion? It puts the American healthcare system on trial. Because what it does is it say, well, what was Luigi Manjone getting so upset about? What was going on in his mind? Well, he was watching the United Healthcare deny claims out the ass of using AI to line shareholders' pocketbooks, and it was spinning him into a state of emotional distress. There's no way for you to explain, in my opinion, and I've been wrong before, so I'll say that, but there's no way to explain how Luigi Manjone got to the point where he became so emotionally distressed that he made a poor choice if you can't explain what caused him to get emotionally distressed, i.e., the eroding healthcare system in America. So this could be an avenue by the defense to put the American healthcare system on trial. Although no judge is going to want to do that, and the prosecution is not going to want to do that, and they're going to have to be real effing clever. But guess what? Karen Agnifilo is real fucking clever. So we'll see. Last minute questions.
There is one from Emmy Gal about the September 16th hearing.
Yeah. Is there now a likelihood the September 16th hearing will be canceled? Yes. Yes. I don't think, I'm not saying it's likely, but sure. Now that Karen has submitted this letter saying, I need more time, it is possible that they will reschedule the September 16th date if that's something that they need to resolve beforehand. Or they'll continue on with the date and they'll discuss in open court whether or not Karen Agnifilo is granted more time or not. So it could, yes, it could impact the September. So that sucks, right? Because I already watch in my Discord channel, some of you are planning on being in New York and going to the September 16th appointment. Yeah, it could get canceled. This letter could cancel that. I don't know that it will. So don't cancel your plans if you're planning on going, but it could impact that. Openings, I hope you're right. I don't know if you were talking to somebody in the chat or me. And if you were talking to me, I don't know which part. EED could be argued in as his despair building up until it overwhelmed him. Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's the EED defense would be he was spinning into an emotional state because of whatever it was, to the point that he got so distraught he made a bad choice because his mental health had declined over a period of time. I honestly feel that that's going to be his defense. They need to discuss the Aetna subpoena. So the Aetna subpoena has been discussed in the sense that Karen Agnifilo ripped them a new asshole on legal documents, which you can find on her website, LuigiManjoneInfo.com. She did rip them significantly about the illegal request, or the illegal statement that they had a subpoena for Aetna. That is before the court. Judge Caro has not ruled on it. That could be something that you see ruled on in the September 16th court date. Yeah, make sure, I would say this as well, make sure you guys get travel insurance, guys. For those of you who are planning on going to the September 16th court hearing, it may possibly be changed or postponed or rescheduled because of this letter. So travel insurance would be a good thing. What else? Openings. I was talking about putting healthcare system on trial, Caring being able to do that in a clever manner. Yeah, this would be, in my opinion, a clever manner of doing that, because in order to explain to a jury how Luigi Manjone spun out of control, if they're going that way, keep in mind, Luigi Manjone, as of this moment, has the presumption of innocence still proven guilty in a court of law. If they go that way, then they have to be able to explain to a jury how Luigi Manjone got spun out of control. How do you do that without talking about the healthcare system? You can't. Yes. Kimberly, his back issues affected his quality of life, contributed to the EED. Yes. If you can show, and it's been documented already, Kimberly, and you probably know this, documentaries have come out talking about Luigi Manjone's surfing accident in Hawaii and how he had a back injury and how he was becoming depressed. That's been covered in documentaries doing a hit piece for Luigi. Luigi Manjone was depressed. He said he couldn't even have sex anymore. He wanted to have a very active physical life, and he realized that his pain would never allow him to have a normal life because it flares up. He has good days, he has bad days, and that was putting him into a depression. There was documentaries already laying down the groundwork that Luigi Manjone was entering a depressed state of mind. Ironically enough, those documentaries, which were designed to be hit pieces against Luigi Manjone, might actually be some of his supporting evidence in this case, ironically enough. I'm looking through the comments.
So Luigi Revolution says that tomorrow is the last day for the prosecution to respond to Moskowitz's motion.
I don't know that. That's a different thing. Moskowitz is a different motion, so that may be true. So Love Vanity said this, and I just want to make sure you guys heard me correctly. Love Vanity says KFA is just keeping her options open. I think you're running with this a bit much, to be honest. Fair, right? Fair. Did I not say to you multiple times? Did I not say to you multiple times during this rant that Karen may be just keeping all of her options open and that she may not be going this way? I'm explaining to you, however, if she is going this way, what that would look like. So I did say that, just to be fair, I did say Karen could simply be keeping all options on the table. I think I said that multiple times. Back me up, Robin. I said it multiple times, right?
You did.
I did. Okay.
That's what we do here.
That's right. And I did say that she was keeping multiple options open, but I'm also explaining to you, if we go that route, here's what it means. So, all right. I'm looking through comments. Almost caught up. I think I am caught up. Okay.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Love Vanity says, I'm not blaming you, Lee. Thank you. And I hope you didn't take that as me attacking you back. I wasn't trying to attack you back. I'm just trying to clarify I did say, and we don't need to cover that again. We said what we said. So thank you very much. We're not in bad shape. We're all good. Thank you so much. All right. Let's get to some news articles that I wanted to point out. So, this is the first article I want to point out on the screen. AOL, AOL.com. Luigi Manjone's case shows how grievance culture has become America's license to break the law. There's some things that I highlighted a lot of this article because it brings up some emotional issues about a lot of things. So let me just read you some of the stuff. In America today, a dangerous mindset is spreading. If you feel wronged, you get to make up your own rules. That's how we've reached the point where some people hail a man accused of murder as a hero simply because his violence was fueled by a grievance. Now, again, I want to point out where I'm going to rail against this bullshit is this attitude of it's okay for the elite and the power and the money to keep abusing the people over and over again. And if you do anything about it, you're just making up your own rules and thinking you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like, you just keep taking the ass kicking all the time. Like, we have a system that's broken, and this is becoming in our country a lot like class warfare. We've got the elite and we've got everybody else. And people from money are putting everyone down into the gutter. And then when somebody acts up in an act of rebellion, they shame you for that's not how we do things in this country. Well, explain to us how anybody makes change in this country. But we're going to get to that. There's a lot of articles that I have that are going to get a little weird if we have time. So let me bear with it, because these are just kind of showing you the sentiment of how mainstream media is depicting anyone who supports Luigi Manjone as you're all a bunch of sickos because this is not how we do things in America. And I get that. I do not believe that we should have vigilante justice. So don't freak out and say that I'm thinking we should have vigilante justice. But what I'm saying is them constantly they're not addressing the bigger picture. There's a reason why Americans are fed up. There are reasons why people are retaliating, because people are sick and tired of being abused by the system. They're sick of it. And so there's going to be flare-ups where individuals are going to do shit. And instead of acting like we should pick on the individuals for that's not what you do, how about addressing the systemic issue, which is how bad things are getting in America? Now, I know I'm on a huge soapbox, so bear with me. Some of you didn't come here for that tonight, but it is what it is. The case of Luigi Manjone, accused of killing United CEO or healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in the name of a grievance, is a chilling example. In my 2 decades as a psychotherapist in New York City and Washington, D.C., I have seen the same logic in quieter, everyday forms. Whether the act is violent or seemingly small, the script is the same. I've been wronged, therefore I'm entitled to break the rules. Recently, a female patient admitted to shoplifting from a neighborhood store. Her reasoning? They can afford it. They overcharge anyways and probably underpay their employees. I'm not a priest. She wasn't confessing. She was just justifying. She believed she was right. So again, they're picking on anybody who thinks that they've got some kind of logic or excuse for what they're doing and shaming them for doing so. A new poll shows the divide clearly. 45% of liberals. Now this gets a little political, and I am not a political guy, but this article. I'm going to point out some points in here. A new poll shows that a divide clearly. 45% of liberals report poor mental health compared to just 19% of conservatives. Oh, look, if you're a conservative, you've got better mental health. You liberals are all fucked in the head. It's kind of what they're saying in this article. But we're not pointing to politics. This is not about politics. Oh, thanks for telling this after you just said, but conservatives handle their shit better. It is about how we are being taught to face adversity. One approach builds resilience. The other conditions people to see themselves as perpetual victims, primed to interpret any setback as injustice and a discomfort as harm. Victimhood has become a currency, and grievance is a license to break the law. There was once a time when personal responsibility was standard. You could be wronged and still be expected to act with integrity. So again, this whole article is to say, Luigi Manjone's act is not the right way to go. And I'm not saying that that's not true, that vigilante justice is not how we want to deal with things in America, but they're missing the bigger picture of how did we get to the point in America where this is the only option some people think we have. In certain corners of social media, Manjone has been elevated to a kind of folk hero, portrayed as a man who stood up against their powerful enemies. The fantasy reached absurd heights in San Francisco, the liberal bastion. We're not making it political, but we're talking about how liberals are more fucked in the head and conservatives have their shit together. And in that liberal town of San Francisco, they hail this guy as a hero. You kind of see where this article goes. But anyways, pictured a man accused of cold-blooded murder turned into a singing, dancing symbol of resistance. So they're talking about the Luigi, the musical, which is sold out in San Francisco. They said if it were satire, it might be funny, but it's not. This mindset did not appear overnight. Therapy culture has been feeding it for years. Too many therapists have stopped challenging their patients and started enabling them. I've seen patients told to quit a new job just 1 week after because they were triggered, or others advised to cut off entire families without any attempt at reconciliation, no conversation, no problem solving, just retreat and self-justification. So these kind of articles, again, are not addressing the systemic problem. It's the constantly blaming anybody who does anything against the system that's out of control and abusing people as the problem and not the systemic problem. How do we address how bad things are getting in America that somebody would get to that point? I'm going to look for comments, by the way. Do we have anything in here? Nothing.
No.
Nothing. All right. Burnout and radicalized how workplace exhaustion breeds extremist thinking. When Luigi Manjone was arrested for the alleged murder of CEO United Healthcare in December 24, public reaction shocked observers. Far from universal condemnation, many people expressed support. This was especially true of young people who, polls show, 41% of young adults viewed the murder as acceptable. So, and again, here's what I'm trying to get at with this. What they're doing is they're showing how disgusting it is that 41% of young adults felt that murder was justifiable in this case. And rather than say, how did we get to that point in our society? They're just shame on them for getting that way. Isn't that disgusting? Instead of what they should be asking, the bigger question is, how did you get to the point where that large of a part of your population believes that that's acceptable because it's the only option left on the table for them? That's the bigger conversation you should be having. So what leads the average person to justify extreme violence? Our recent published research in special issue Understanding Violent Extremism of the APA journal locates the answer in one increasingly widespread phenomenon: workplace burnout. Manjone's manifesto, for fuck's sake, he didn't have a manifesto. He had a notebook of personal feelings that was never meant to be published to the public. The law enforcement published that to the public and told people what his message was. That made it a manifesto. It wasn't a manifesto is by definition written for the purpose of being shared with everyone. Even if Luigi Manjone had that notebook in his possession, which he probably did, to be fair, but even if he did, there was no indication whatsoever that Luigi Manjone intended that to be published on mainstream news, on New York Times, on Wall Street Journal, everywhere in America as a manifesto. They turned it into a manifesto. So I'm just ranting about this whole fucking manifesto shit that pisses me off all the time. He did not write a manifesto. At best, he had a journal of his personal grievances, and they published it and called it his manifesto, which they do with everyone now. Every time somebody shoots somebody, they've got a manifesto. Anyways, so they talk about workplace. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. They talk about workplace dissatisfaction. And basically what they're getting to again is that Americans feel disenfranchised. We're not working with our companies to be part of something. We're working to make somebody else money so that they can buy another yacht, so they can go on vacation, so they can send their kids to an Ivy League school. We work our ass off and work ourselves into the bone so that they can have a better life. And then they complain because the average worker just doesn't feel like they're being treated right by their employers. They have workplace burnout. We got to make them happier. Give them more pizza socials. You are missing the systemic problem in America. I was going to hit this article, but I decided as I'm ranting that I don't like this philosophical rant as much as I thought I was going to. This article was a lot of Trumpism, talking about how capitalism in America is the problem and Trump is the problem. And the whole Luigi Manjone thing is an effect of Trump being out of control. I'm not political. I don't want to make it about Trump. The point, however, of the article and the reason why I highlighted it was because of this kind of highlight right here. 73% of Americans see political violence as a major problem. At the same time, online resources are, for 3D printing guns have grown in popularity. The majority of young American people are while they're not looking to pick up a gun and plot assassination, for many of them, they're trying to find out how to stop essentially an out-of-control capitalistic system. They give out, this article has a huge discussion about socialism. I mean, for fuck's sake, the paper's about socialism. But there was a couple of highlights that I liked in here. And again, I don't want to go into it as much as I was going to. So let me see if I can just find the one piece. However, there's no use in waiting around for the situation to change, hoping that someone will come to the force to save us. By the way, so the article basically was saying is, they were making an appeal that we have to deal with this systemic problem in America, not waiting for a Luigi Manjone to become our savior and go shoot some CEO and basically then hail him as a hero, like he's going to fix the problem in America. The last thing I want to end on before we get to complete questions and answers, and again, I feel like this is a little dry, so I apologize, but it is what it is. It's an important topic. I want to talk about United Healthcare and their money grab. This one drives me nuts. Listen to what they're talking about, the shareholders. This is the reason why people are so incensed at this system. When Brian Thompson was shot and killed in New York by whoever did it, and again, we're not saying it's Luigi Manjone at this point because we don't know, he has a presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. But when that happened, shareholders of United Healthcare literally had the audacity to sue United Healthcare for not giving them the profits they were told they were going to get. Because, hey, I don't care that your CEO was shot and killed and that you're under investigation by Department of Justice. You promised me, bitch, a certain amount of money on my investment and you didn't make good. We're suing you. And they give zero, the money makers give zero shits what United Healthcare is going through. Now, the funny part about this article is they talk about, in this article from the Health Exec, about how United Healthcare is forming a public responsibility committee. That sounds like they're concerned about the public. Fuck no. Read the details of this article. They're concerned about the shareholders and how they can get shareholders to trust in their company again. So while they're talking about public responsibility, much of this article is all about how do we make shareholders happy again, because they're upset with us and suing us over how we're not making them as much money. I'm going to try to get a couple of highlights real quick. The company revealed more details on its website, outlining the committee's rules and responsibilities. Within its scope is monitoring prior authorization policies, including appeals and the business practices of Optum RX, the pharmacy benefit manager of United Healthcare. So they're looking into the things that caused them this problem in the first place. They had hired AI, they'd used AI to increase the number of rejections of insurance claims so that they could make more money. So now they're looking into it. How can we fix this AI problem? Policies such as how the company deploys artificial intelligence, AI, will be under review by the committee as it looks to mitigate the damage to public perception. Listen to this, is what pisses me off. Their concern is the public perception. It's not a problem that AI is rejecting people at a 75% inaccurate rate and denying people claims that should be covered. That's not the problem. The problem is your fucking perception, public, that that's a bad thing. Like, how do we fix the public perception? We're denying claims at a record rate and people aren't getting care and they're dying and the public seems to be pissed about it. So let's get together and talk about how can we fix the public perception that they're pissed about this. The audacity of this drives me nuts. I don't know if you follow the logic in this. Notably, the company's practices around using AI to automatically deny medical claims have been subject to public and regulatory scrutiny, with United Healthcare facing a lawsuit over such policies. They are under investigation by the Department of Justice. People are pissed off about it. And their response is, how do we change public perception so it's not such a bad thing that we're denying the fuck out of their claims? That's their concern. The changes come as if it faces another lawsuit filed by the changes come as it faces another lawsuit filed by its investors and shareholders over its alleged shift to a more consumer-friendly business model in the wake of the murder of the CEO insurance arm, Brian Thompson. Understand what that just said. They're facing a lawsuit from their own investors because their investors are pissed off that they're concerned about public perception. Fuck you and your public perception. I don't give a shit. Where's my money? I invested in your company. You told me I was going to get X number of profit. I don't care what is going on. I'm suing you while you try to fix the public perception that maybe we're screwing America by denying their claims. This is the most screwed up asinine system I've ever seen. This healthcare system, in my opinion, needs to be put on trial somehow. Now, whether Luigi Manjone is going to do it or not, I don't know. But this healthcare system is out of control in America.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yep. Wholeheartedly.
United Healthcare Group has undergone a leadership shakeup this year. Andrew Whitty stepped down. He's been replaced by a former CEO, Stephen Hemsley. He's back in charge again because Andrew Whitty cashed out a crap ton of shares of Andrew Whitty and Brian Thompson before Brian Thompson was shot, cashed out their personal shares in United Healthcare when the stock was at an all-time high because they knew they were under investigation by the Department of Justice and they knew it was about to be made public and that the stock was going to take a big giant shit. So you know what they did? They cashed out at the high price and left everybody else taking the big hit and losing a ton of money. And they've been sued left and right over it. So Andrew Whitty now has wisely stepped out of the limelight and be like, well, I guess I don't want to get shot like Brian Thompson, so I'll just take my money and run. So the stock, they said of this article, was down still 40% year to date. A new committee may not be the only way United intends to boost its reputation. They're worried about their reputation. In July, the New York Times released a report detailing how the company is using media outlets. So this is important. They are now, United Healthcare is suing media outlets and social media users over allegations of defamation. So if someone like me, Devil's Advocates, comes out and says United Healthcare is fucking America with their attempts to deny your claims, they might come after me with a lawsuit and sue me for defamation of character. We're doing no such thing. Prove it. Prove that we're screwing America. Prove it. I'm suing you. Defamation of character. They might shut my account down. They're going after social media users. They're going after everyone, suing everybody for saying, how dare you say that we're screwing people using AI to deny claims at unprecedented rates and making a fuck ton of money for our shareholders. They were on a record pace for worldwide profits they've never seen before because of the policies of Brian Thompson, who's now been shot and killed for doing that shit. And again, I'm not justifying the murder of Brian Thompson. I'm telling you, there's a reason why somebody did something like that. All right, I feel like I've been on a soapbox enough. I feel a little ranty. I feel a little bit bad. Let's take it down a notch. What's the takeaway from tonight? The takeaway from tonight is Karen Agnifilo is asking for a little bit more time to discuss whether or not they're going to go for some kind of mental health issue, which includes, in my opinion, if she goes that way, the most likely thing they're going for is an extreme emotional disturbance, EED defense, saying Luigi Manjone was on a downward spiral of depression and lost his mind for a time because he was on a downward spiral. But they have to prove that to a jury that if you were in Luigi Manjone's shoes, you would understand how he would come to that decision, even temporarily, and then give him manslaughter instead of the death penalty. Now, again, in the state, this is the difficulty. In the state case, Luigi Manjone is not facing the death penalty. In the state case, he is facing life in prison without the possibility of parole. It's the federal government that's going to be able to execute him if they do that. So the question becomes, the $1 million question becomes, if Luigi Manjone's state case goes first, like the state wants, and if Luigi Manjone successfully argues that, hey, yeah, I did it, but here's why I did it, and therefore it gets reduced to manslaughter, can the federal government come in and use that admission of guilt, yeah, I did it, to execute him? I don't think so. But I've got attorney friends in the wings. I'm going to reach out to my good friend Ali Benevento and get her to give her opinion. Can the federal government still go to execute Luigi Manjone if he can successfully argue in the state case that, yeah, I did it, but here's why I did it, and that it was EED? Can the state still proceed with executing him after that kind of thing? So we'll talk to my lawyer friend about that if she gets some time. She's super busy. She's taken on a couple big cases I can't even tell you about. So mostly because I want to talk to her about those cases, and if I start talking about it on screen, then I won't be able to talk to her at all. It's kind of confusing. Anyways, last minute comments, concerns about Luigi Manjone before we close.
One had a really good question. You're not an expert with this necessarily, but if it was kind of like up to you, I guess, how would the justice system deal with the healthcare industry differently, or do they just not even give a shit?
I'm not sure if I understand what you're asking on that.
No, where did that go?
It was something one posted?
Yeah. How might the justice system address ideological crime differently?
I don't know. I mean, that's the $1 million question in this whole case. I mean, here's the irony from what I understand. I don't know if I'm addressing your question right, but here's the irony. So part of the argument for why the federal government thinks they can execute Luigi Manjone is that they believe that Luigi Manjone was trying to change policy in America, that he was actually doing this as an attack against the United States government by forcing a change in our policies. In other words, forcing the hand of Congress to start passing and enacting laws that will make the system less predatory. If they can argue that Luigi Manjone was doing this to change policy, that's one of the major reasons they're using to try to say he needs to be executed, because he was doing it as a political act to try to change policy in America. So the fine line, in my opinion, that Karen Agnifilo has to ride is being able to say there's a problem in America that led to this, without saying that Luigi Manjone thought that his actions were going to be the catalyst to make change in America. So it's a really, really nuanced thing. I did want to answer this question that I've got pinned on here. Will you still support Luigi Manjone if he asserts an insanity defense? So yes and no. The supporting thing is the hard part. You have to understand the supporting thing is a hard part. One, my channel always believes in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. That does change in essence if Luigi Manjone's defense is, yeah, I did it, but here's why I did it. It changes a little, right? Because now you can't presume his innocence because he's saying, yeah, I did it. However, it's nuanced because you're still saying I did it, but you have to understand all the circumstances. So I will support that kind of logic. Yes. And I will not stop covering the case, even if it becomes an insanity defense. So ultimately, I will be covering this case, and I'll be breaking down the law, and I'll break down the legal fight, and I'll give my opinions on the judicial system and the law enforcement system, and when they broke the law, all the times that the judicial system has failed Luigi Manjone, all the times law enforcement has violated his constitutional rights. None of that's going to change whatsoever. My talking about this has to be careful, because again, if it sounds like I'm saying let's all go do some kind of act of revolutionary, assassination on people that we don't think are doing the right thing, that's not a good place for us to be. I can't even have a YouTube channel if I'm suggesting anything remotely close to that. So we have to be very, very careful and just say, here's the facts. Here's the facts. And I will continue to keep reporting the facts. I hope that answers your question as best that I can. Looking through comments. And again, Michelle, we've talked about this before, the not guilty thing. Again, one more time for those people who are not familiar with this. Sometimes the law is not written in a way that addresses all circumstances. And sometimes juries decide that the law has been violated, but the law didn't address this particular circumstance. And they can rule any way they choose, and they don't need to explain to a judge why they ruled that way. One thing that can happen, and I've said it, and this has not changed. One thing that can happen in this case is a hung jury. Can they find 12 New Yorkers who decide that Luigi Manjone is such a despicable human being that he broke the law and he deserves to be executed? I don't think that's possible, personally. Then again, I didn't think they were going to go for an insanity defense, and there's a possibility they will. So I could be wrong, but I don't think, because you have to understand, in order to get the death penalty, they have to have basically two separate phases. One is, did Luigi Manjone break the law? And then two, if he did, is death the only acceptable response for what he did? And I don't think you convince 12 juries that death is the only thing that justifies it. I think a jury will say, you have to understand why Luigi did it. You have to understand his mindset. And if you find one single person on the jury who's sympathetic to the idea that I can see why he got so spun up, that he felt this was the only option. If you get one person to do that, you either have a hung jury or you have what's called jury nullification. Jury nullification looks like this. Yes, Your Honor, Luigi Manjone is guilty of shooting Brian Thompson in the back and murdering him. And what is your verdict? Not guilty. That's jury nullification. It's like a shocking moment. It's like yeah, we know he did it, and we declare him not guilty. And again, they don't have to explain themselves. That's called jury nullification. And that's happened before in cases such as when people were harboring slaves. When slavery was illegal and slaves would leave a plantation and other people would harbor a slave, that was against the law. And when they were brought to courtrooms in America saying, did you or did you not violate the law by harboring this slave? They said, yeah, that person did violate the law. And what's your verdict? Not guilty. We don't give a fuck. The law was unjust in the first place. So that could happen in this case as well. One asks, what significance did the ghost gun and engraved bullets have in the symbolic messaging? Personally, I don't think the ghost gun had anything to do with the symbolic messaging myself. The bullets, engraved bullets, absolutely had symbolic messaging because the words were something to the effect of deny, delay, depose, which is close to the title of a book that was written by the same thing about how insurance companies deny your claims, they delay payments, they deny it, and then they depose you or make you have to defend your position in a court to try to do everything they can to not pay out. And so the fact that that was written on the bullet cases indicated that that person was sending a message with that shooting. So I think that was symbolic in that regards. The irony is the using of the ghost gun and all the things that happened, going in the run for 5 days, not wearing gloves during the shooting so that your fingerprints are on the weapon, leaving a water bottle or a kind wrapper or your cell phone behind at the crime scene, chewing gum in a backpack with your DNA on it, yet going on the run just to sit in a McDonald's and turn yourself in with a confession letter and say, yeah, I did it, but then argue that it was an illegal arrest. All of that shit doesn't make a lot of fucking sense. Now, maybe you chalk it up at the end of the day is that Luigi Manjone was going through emotional distress and he wasn't thinking clearly. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I hate to even say it because I've always argued that it diminishes the idea that somebody might have been rational when they made this decision. What else?
Luigi Revolution says, you're the one that always brings up the gloves, and it seems to be very significant.
Yes.
The gloves seem to be very significant.
For me, it is. Understand, Luigi, and I don't know if I can put this into words to explain to you. Luigi Manjone supposedly had a pair of gloves in his backpack when they arrested him in Altoona, Pennsylvania, 5 days after the shooting. You tell me why Luigi Manjone, if he's the shooter in New York, decides not to wear the gloves. Why print a 3D ghost gun in the first place to avoid detection somehow? Why have gloves in your backpack for allegedly holding onto the gun and not leaving fingerprints, and then do a barehanded shooting? And in my opinion, and again, I realize I'm one of the only people who keep bringing this out. In my opinion, that shooter sat down a piece of evidence on top of a pile of garbage right under a camera on purpose. He wanted to be seen barehanding something and putting it on top of the trash so that they would swoop in and get their fingerprints. Why was that done? Because I've maintained, and I've got lots of articles about it and videos, that there may be that they're playing a game, that this might be more than one person, that they might be playing a game, that they might be misleading people, that the shooter might not be Luigi Manjone. I've said that for a long time. The shooter might not be Luigi Manjone. It might be somebody completely different. And when they check the fingerprints, and again, they're kind of quiet about the fingerprints. They say they got partials. They say they have things like this. What's going to come out, we don't know. But I've maintained from the very beginning, things don't make sense. If he intended to turn himself in after the shooting, then why not just stand there until they come grab him? Why go on the run? Why hide? Why take steps to evade? Why get out of the city and go on the run for 5 days only to sit in McDonald's eating a hash brown to get arrested? A lot of this doesn't make sense. And when you look into a lot of the weird game theory stuff, like the hidden messages and the Pokemon Breloom 286, the denial of claims code that I've talked about, the Monopoly money left in a backpack, it seems like somebody's playing a giant game. So, and I think there's been some cryptic letters from Luigi Manjone. I'm still not past the idea that Luigi Manjone's got some kind of master fucking plan going on, or somebody else does, or him and somebody else does. Again, go watch the show, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, about a group of people who just conspired together to commit a crime, to change policy, and then agreed that one person would take the fall so that the rest of them can get away and do it again. Watch that movie as a food for thought. Angela K says his physical appearance definitely played a role in my fascination to this case. Absolutely. And I had Ali Benevento on my, my show, and she said, trust me, the fact that Luigi Manjone is not bad looking or not, and that's an understatement. A lot of women find him extremely good looking, but the point being is that his looks is what makes this a national case of humongous interest. If he had been an ogre looking MFer, we wouldn't be having the conversation we're having. So that his looks did play in to why this has got such big appeal. Not just anybody could have pulled off that if, and again, that's if Luigi Manjone is the shooter. We do not know at this point if Luigi Manjone is a shooter. He hasn't had his day in court, and he has the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. Did Luigi Manjone just demonstrate traits of narcissism, delusion, hyper-rationality in his writings? One, I'm going to be super blunt with you. The answer is yes. There is indications of some of that. For example, Gunwinder Bogle, I think was the name of an individual who wrote an article about, are you an NPC? The idea was that some people are just floating through life. They're NPCs. They don't really think for themselves. They don't act for themselves. Luigi Manjone reached out to him, had communications with him, told him allegedly that he was afraid he was becoming an NPC. And he wrote in his writings something to the effect of, apparently I'm one of the only people willing to have essentially the balls to do something like this about it, that we're being fucked in America, and that apparently I'm the only one to address it with such brutal honesty. That was basically the wordings, I think, as I just got it at the end. I think his wording, Luigi Manjone's alleged wording, was something to the effect of, apparently I'm one of the only people willing to address it with such brutal honesty. That could be depicted as narcissism or something to that effect. So to be fair, that could be the case. And again, I just try to be fair with all sides of this case. So you ask the question, did he show any potential narcissism traits, delusion, hyper irrationality? Yes. In my opinion, yes. Some. If he wrote those things. I'm not sure about this one. How did Luigi Manjone's upbringing in Towson, Maryland influence his later worldview? I don't know. I haven't looked into that.
Lee, I have a question.
Yeah.
And this is something I'm curious about with a lot of different cases. How much do you think generational or age played a role in this? Do you think that so many people are supportive of Luigi because, let's face it, there's a lot of younger people that are being screwed over right now, and do you think that has anything to do with his support?
I do, in a way. I think the young generation believes him. I had a person on my channel tell me that they were surprised that someone of my age, that was a nice insult, I'm surprised someone of your age is supportive of Luigi Manjone. Like old farts apparently can't understand social inequality or abuse of the system, but apparently they think that only young people understand that America's got problems. I'm surprised that someone of your age would understand this. Like, Fuck you. Anyways, to be fair, it was a moment. We got past it. I made peace with it. But yeah, I think the young people are in particular supportive of this. I want to address Luigi Manjone's, or Luigi Revolution's comment that he called himself a revolutionary anarchist. That part has been debated. Luigi Manjone was, I believe, making a reference to Ted Kaczynski's manifesto, Industrial Society, in which he referred to himself, Ted Kaczynski, as a revolutionary anarchist. I believe the federal government twisted those words together to make it sound like Luigi called himself a revolutionary anarchist, and they said it multiple times. When I dove into that a little bit, it did not appear that Luigi Manjone called himself a revolutionary anarchist. He simply he made a quote about Ted Kaczynski's stating he was a revolutionary anarchist, and then they attributed it to, that's what Luigi Manjone thinks of himself, is that he's a revolutionary anarchist. But I could be wrong about that. It's been a while since I looked into that. Did his mental struggles diminish his trust in authority figures broadly? Did he ever seek counseling or mental health treatment? Was his illness isolating him socially and professionally? To date, I know of no counseling that Luigi Manjone has received. I've said that from the very beginning. There has been nothing documenting that Luigi Manjone was seeing a counselor, a therapist, was undergoing any kind of psychiatric evaluation whatsoever. There's no indications that I've seen anywhere that he was on any psychiatric meds. So I don't know. That may come out because that's HIPAA violated stuff, or HIPAA protected stuff. But and that would be part of the whole EED defense, right? If they're going to, or they're going to diminished capacity. If he was taking drugs for anxiety or depression, then they could maybe argue diminished capacity. Yeah, somebody else supported my comment that no, I don't think he called himself a revolutionary anarchist. He was referring to Ted Kaczynski as that. I agree. That's what I believe I remember as well. I don't believe that he's a narcissist. No one who actually knew him described him that way. They say the opposite. I agree. The question, however, was just asked, do you see anything in his writings that can be taken as narcissistic? And by the way, there's another reason why I think that's possible. So I'm just giving you, I'm just going to be honest with the thing. Like, I'm very, very, very invested in this case. And I have very positive feelings about a lot of stuff in this case. So, but I will be fair with both sides of the equation. That's what playing devil's advocate is. Even when you're locked into one position, you should play devil's advocate with your own position to see if your position holds under scrutiny. One is full of questions tonight. Did he adopt elements of anarchism, anti-capitalism, or eco-radicalism? How did he interpret Ted Kaczynski's philosophy relative to his own? So that's a difficult question. Ted Kaczynski's book, Industrial Society, is all about a lot of that kind of anti-capitalistic and all that stuff. And Luigi Manjone gave it very, very positive reviews. In fact, the part that looks semi-bad for Luigi Manjone was the statement essentially that Ted Kaczynski's message was fine, his delivery sucked ass. That's my paraphrasing. That because Ted Kaczynski hurt innocent people, he made himself a terrorist, which is the worst thing a person can be. That's paraphrasing words they say Luigi Manjone wrote. So he had high praise for Ted Kaczynski's thought process about how things are broken in our society, but that he was clear to say that Ted Kaczynski fucked up by hurting innocent people, of which that endeared a lot of people to Luigi Manjone, because Luigi Manjone was like, if you're going to do something about it, you don't hurt innocent people. And by extension, by the way, under that logic, Brian Thompson was not an innocent person. So that would be, and again, there were statements by Luigi Manjone that if he wrote them, indicate that his act, if he did it against Brian Thompson, was essentially an act of war. They had already declared war on the American people. It was like one soldier killing another. I'm paraphrasing here. These are not the words of Luigi Manjone. It's paraphrasing his sentiment that Brian Thompson was not innocent. Luigi Manjone took steps, or the shooter took steps, to make sure that an innocent person wasn't hit. It was at an early time of day when hardly anybody was on the street, a point blank range. None of the shots missed. They took steps to make sure no innocent person was hit, and Brian Thompson was not considered an innocent in that scenario. Cheryl says, as a resident of Florida, I'm surrounded by older folk, and I can tell you that a great many of them are being screwed over by the healthcare system and health insurance system. Many older folk are supportive. So yes, to those young whippersnappers who say, I can't believe an old fart like you actually gives a shit about Luigi Manjone. Yeah, we know what it looks like to get fucked too, just like you. So join the club. What else? Hey, Devil's Advocates, Karmic Retribution. Thank you for checking in and saying hi. All right. I feel I have been a little ranty. I think enough philosophy tonight, right? Again, I just wanted to bring up to speed on Karen Agnifalo's motion, which again, to summarize as I will exit, I swear to God, I'm going to exit, Robin. I'm going to exit at this point. So to summarize again, the big news, Karen Agnifalo has filed a letter yesterday asking for more time to consider whether or not Luigi Manjone is going to file any kind of mental health defense, such as extreme emotional disturbance, EED, temporary insanity, or heat of passion, that kind of defense. It does not mean that that's where they're going. She's asking for more time to review it. As someone else succinctly said, I think Karen Agnifalo is keeping all options on the table. And we spent a great part of tonight, half hour at least tonight, talking about what those scenarios would look like if they go that route. Thank you for listening and paying attention to the Luigi Manjone story. I hope that you will continue to watch it. It's going to be, I think, a landmark case in America. I really do. I think at the end of the day, this is going to change policy in America one way or another. So hold your hats. Let's see how this turns out, and have a good night.